Hey, what's going on with you? This your boy Big MC coming at you live from Skater Claus Labs. Coming at you with another hip hop breakdown. And I really liked my last video I did about Hazmat Rap, the song by Czarface, where I just broke down one song. I thought it turned out really well, so I want to do that again with another song. And the song is God Loves Ugly by the hip hop duo Atmosphere. Who I just love Atmosphere. I've talked about them in the past. They're extremely unique in a lot of ways. One, it is comprised of an MC who goes by Slug and a producer that goes by Ant, and they're based out of Minneapolis, South Side. And one is, they just have a really unique style, both in the sense that Slug, his rhyming style and his use of metaphors is ridiculous, probably the best at it. And then Ant, he's just a really good producer, and he pulls some samples from crazy stuff that, like, you wouldn't expect in hip-hop, a lot of piano-based stuff. He does a lot of, like, just odd stuff like, Tom Waits and things like that you wouldn't expect. Also wanted to do this one and just get into talking about, like, how deep the lyrics are, like the meaning behind them. And I'm a weird cat. I kind of have, like, these things in my head. My head never stops spinning, and I kind of have this own, like, language in like terms for things that I don't even typically tell people, but I use in my head in my internal monologue. And so this is what I would call an interview song. And what I mean by that is I love this song so much that if it comes on my playlist, I will never turn it off. So, like, why I say interview song is if I was pulling into a parking lot for a dream job interview and I was right on time, but this song came on, I would be, 5 minutes late because I couldn't turn this song off. So we're going to get into this song. I'm obviously going to pause it in between verses and just kind of break down the lyrics more in depth. And there's so much to break down. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff in here that I probably haven't caught. And if there's anything that I missed, like, let me know in the comments. But Slug is just one of those guys who his lyrics are very deep, very meaningful, and there's a lot of metaphors in there. So let's listen to God Loves Ugly by Atmosphere off of the album of the same name.
Come here. What are you doing? I'm just waiting for. He might come out. Like, you standing in the rain. Like, what? Wait, I just want to see you. Did you get a photograph? No, what are you waiting for? Who, Slug? You're waiting for fucking Slug?
Kind of a simple beat. Drum part, piano part, and a little bit of a vocal sample in there. But it's great.
I wear my scars like the rings on a pimp. I live life like the captain of a sinking ship. The one thing that I can guarantee, I'm like a stepping race. I suggest you stay fair with me. Been paying dues for a decade plus. Before that, I was just another face on the bus, tapping my foot to the beat on the radio, dreaming about the mic and the money and the ladies. Oh mom, I promise I'm gonna be large. Someday I'ma stop trying to borrow your car. Gonna go far with charisma and skill until they put my face on $1 million bill. Atmosphere, it's just a 10-letter word. Discretion is the name of my cement-feathered bird. And if you didn't hear, then fuck whatever's heard. I think you got the sickness, I suggest you get it cured. Caught up in the mix of a bottle full of fix. I'ma hobble down the street till I reach Knob Creek. It's not that I don't like you, I just don't wanna speak. You fucking freak, now keep your days out my week. The world keeps a balance through mathematics, defined by whatever you've added and subtracted. I'm pushing on the hammer to trigger the brain. Embrace how I live, 'cause God loves ugly.
Whew! Okay, so there is so much to unpack there, and I'm not going to get to all of it. So I'm just going to go through some highlights. And honestly, some of it I know I don't get, which is okay because, like, one day it might just click in my brain. But the very first line is, I wear my scars like the rings on a pimp. So obviously, like, rings on a pimp, like, you know, that's showing off. So he's talking about how he wears his scars, which, you know, I think, you know, primarily is referring to emotional scars, but maybe physical scars too. How he wears them like a badge of honor. You know, he's not ashamed of them. He's proud of them. I mean, a lot of people physically are ashamed of their scars because they, you know, think they look ugly, and you know, there's a lot of people that have emotional scars that they're ashamed of. But this first line is great because it's setting up the whole theme of the song, which is that basically I think a lot of what he's talking about here is how you don't get greatness out of comfort. Great things, like typically great art isn't developed from people who have had happy lives. It typically is derived from people who have like lived a life where there's been a lot of hardship. And I think in generally that's the theme. And I mean, you know, like the name of the song and then the chorus is, you know, God loves ugly. And I think that's what he's talking about, is that you know, even though it's ugly, like God loves ugly, and that you know, even though sometimes we go through hardship, we grow from that. I mean, there's a lot of kind of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it, but like there's a lot of sayings, like I know there's a Native American saying where it's like, when, you know, we ask for strength, we don't ask the, you know, gods for strength, we ask them for hardship because we grow strong through that hardship. And I think that's kind of what he's talking about. Also, I've talked a lot on my channel before about the cat Serengeti, who I like a lot, and he's got this line I love in a song where it's like, at least I write better the worse it gets, turn your troubles into $1 million rhyme hit. And I mean, unfortunately, I think it's kind of true. Like, you never want to see people suffer, but I feel like good art is made out of suffering in most cases. So there's another line that I really like in this verse, which is like, oh mom, I promise I'm gonna be large. Someday I'ma stop trying to borrow your car, gonna go far with charisma and skill until they put my face on the $1 million bill. I just like it. It's just a good line. He's like, Mom, I promise you I'm gonna be good, you know? But a lot of what Atmosphere does, a lot of what Slug does, is self-deprecating, but it's real. It talks about real life situations. He also has the line that, caught up in the mix of a bottle full of fix, I'ma hobble down the street till I reach Knob Creek. Knob Creek is a brand of bourbon, and, you know, here he's talking about, you know, using alcohol to, you know, try and dull the pain of his problems, which I can relate to, because sometimes I do that. Alright, so I think that's all I want to say about verse 1. Oh, the world keeps a balance through mathematics defined by whatever you've added and subtracted. I think that's kind of like that epic Beatles line, which is like, you know, in the end, the love you make is equal to the love you take, or something like that. And I think he's just saying, like, you know, the world does keep a balance. Like, you might go through hardship, but you know, if you suffer through it and you add something positive to the world, you'll get it back. So yeah, that's the first verse. I'm sorry, this is going to be a long video for a short song, but there's so much to unpack in the lyrics. So let's go to the next verse. There's a lot of nautical imagery in this song. And the video itself is nautical imagery, and I actually am not really exactly sure what that's about. So let me know in the comments if you do.
I damn near had to steal the show. I stepped on the stage, who is it? My name's Slug, I've come to kill a couple minutes. And what's up with the way that everybody gathers around each other so they can steal each other's sound? If it's all about getting down with the get down, I'll long I gotta wait for these fools to sit down appears more clear in its simplest form. Nobody sees tears when you're standing in the storm, abandoning the norm and handling the harvest, measuring the worth by the depth of the hardship. I welcome all the hatred you can aim at my name. I held onto the sacred ways of how to play the game. When the soldiers started running short on rations, I began tapping the egg to spark the hatching. Make it happen and take this captain to the gallows. I keep steering us into an area that's shallow. Talking to my shadow, he advised me not to worry. Said I should plant my tree and let it rise out of the fury. So give me some light, a little love and some liquid. I'ma creep through the night and put a plug in the spigot. And when the water grows and the dam starts to overflow, I'll float atop the flood, holding on to my ugly.
Alright, so that's verse 2. And again here, you know, the theme of embracing the ugly, embracing the bad parts of life. And then this is something that hits home for me because, you know, probably a lot of you know I do like the Skater Claus project and stuff, and I out of choice choose to live in areas that are more impoverished because I think it's important. The only way you bring communities up is like moving to communities that, you know, have issues and there's a lot of darkness in them, and like you make them better. And again, it's not like you need to go out and look for pain in order to be a good rapper or to grow yourself, but the reality of the situation is a lot of times you know, develop your character as a person by going through hardship. So let's break down the lyrics a little bit. First off, there's a line here that uses a really cool mechanism, right? So it's, once upon a time in Minneapolis, yo, I damn near had to steal the show. So this is actually a reference to Ice Cube's song, Once Upon a Time in the Projects, which I think is really cool. And then also, another Easter egg, there's also a song called Steal the Show by Ice Cube. So I think that's really cool. And then, you know, there's also a part where he's like, what's up with everybody gathering around trying to steal each other's sound. And for this, I mean, I like that because one, Slug, you can't say that he isn't unique. Like, he's one of the most unique guys out there in the game. And in the last video in Czarface, I talked about, you know, ODB and then how I feel like Esoteric kind of referenced him in the song I was breaking down, Hazmat Rap, by saying that, you know, your style has 1,000 fathers, mine's in an orphan home. Like, ODB said that he was old dirty bastard because there's no father to his style, and I think that's kind of what Slug's saying here. Like, what's up with people just doing the same thing that everyone else is doing? And again, like, you know, Slug can't say that because he is super unique. And that goes into this next line, which is just, to me, like, this is one of my favorite lines of all time. Appears more clear in its simplest form. Nobody sees tears when you're standing in the storm. I'm not a good talker. Abandoning the norm and handling the harvest, measuring the worth by the depth of the hardship. So, you know, right there, I mean, again, it's like, it's talking about how, you know, no one sees tears in the storm. Like, you know, when you're going through hard times, you know, it's a storm, and it's okay to cry. And then also, it's like measuring the worth by the depth of the hardship. Like, again, he's talking about, like, a lot of people go through hardship, and it makes them stronger, but also, there's just some things that, there's some routes out there that are easy, and then there's some things that are more difficult to do. And I think in this, he's trying to kind of say, like, one, the general theme of the song, which is that, you know, ugliness, hard times strengthen you, but also, like, don't take the easy route. You got to measure the worth by the depth of the hardship. You know, he talks about holding on to the sacred ways of how to play the game. I like that because he does. He's a true, like, hip-hop head. Let me see. I'm just trying to, like, really read the lyrics here and make sure there's nothing that I missed. yeah, I mean, I think that's all for this verse. So let's go into the last verse and close it out. So I'll hit play and we'll break it down and we'll end this video.
Wide screen, when you can lose yourself inside the wide screen. Let life be a bowl of melted ice cream, or be the deer that's caught in my high beams. I'm rolling with the brights on, scared stiff. Reality is just too much to bear with. Paranoid, walking around careless. No wonder you're in love with your therapist. Go to sleep, my little time bomb. God loves ugly.
Alright, so I mean, I don't even know, like, that was kind of like a half verse or like an outro, I guess you'd say. It was very short. But, in my opinion, this is, it's a really great wrap-up, right? So it starts out with why scream when you can lose yourself inside the wide screen. And here, I mean, I think what he means by that line is pretty apparent, but, I mean, my thoughts on it are like, you know, how he's talking about why, people who don't embrace the ugliness, people who don't embrace the negativity in their life, people who don't face it and use escapism, just to, like, not pay attention to it. Like, earlier on he was talking about bottle full of fix, using alcohol. Here he's talking about, like, TV. And everyone has their vices. Absolutely everyone. I don't care who they are. There are people that, TV might be their vice. It might be video games. It might be alcohol. It might be weed. It might be heroin. But it's a great wrap-up, because what he's saying is sometimes you need to lean into it, right? And, he says, deer in high beams, I'm rolling with my brights on. Scared stiff, reality is just too much to bear with. Again, he's talking about escapism and how, you need to embrace the ugly parts of life if you really want to, like, live your best life. No wonder you're in love with your therapist. Go to sleep, little time bomb. So, again, I think the whole kind of meaning of the song is one, like, there is ugliness in the world and you need to recognize it and not shy away from it, and you actually can benefit from it. And it kind of wraps up with this last, like, mini verse where he's, I wouldn't say mocking, but he's basically like, look, you don't just, like, turn your back on your fears, on the ugliness in the world. Don't fall in love with your therapist. Don't fall in love with your widescreen TV. Don't fall in love with the whiskey bottle. You need to live your life, and you need to know that there's going to be ugliness in it. And honestly, this song, like, rings true to me right now. I've been going through a hard time for a while, and I need to, like, remind myself of this constantly. So this is a good song. Like I said, this is an interview song. This is one I never turn off. I love Atmosphere. I would suggest Atmosphere to anyone, especially anyone that, like, doesn't necessarily like hip hop, because they're very different from most hip hop. It's not braggadocious stuff, and the lyrics are incredibly complex. So anyway, this is your boy Big MC, another hip hop breakdown. Listen to Atmosphere, listen to God Loves Ugly, the album and the song. But honestly, every single release that they put out is amazing. So just listen to Atmosphere. Peace, love, respect as always. I'll come at you with another video as soon as I can. And as usual, do not get captured.